Coming up next on Access Framingham TV is Fan to Fan, where we discuss all things sports. Today we'll talk senior softball with 3 players from the Eastern Mass Senior Softball League. Stay tuned. It's going to be hard-hitting and fast-paced. This is Fan to Fan on Access TV. Hi, I'm Dave Hornfischer, a sports fan, and I'm pleased to host this interview show whose purpose is to highlight those who are involved in Framingham sports at all levels. We hope through this show to increase awareness and ideally fan support of these fun sporting events, and also to help use sports to help achieve our station's goal of building community. Today I'm pleased to welcome 3 players from the Eastern Mass Senior Softball League. Rob Mitchell, the league president, Rob Podoloff, and Dennis Piantigini. Welcome, guys. It's great to have you on the show.
Hey, Dave.
Well, as a fellow player in the league, it's especially fun for me to do this show, but I'm taking off my senior softball hat this year and putting on my interviewer hat. And so, first of all, let's start with Rob Mitchell, the league president. Hail to the chief, I guess we play when you show up. But why don't you tell us a little bit about Eastern Mass, EMASS as we call it, and how it got started, and just a few facts about the numbers and so forth.
Sure. Thanks for having us on, Dave. I don't know about hail to the chief. I became commissioner only because they asked about 300 other guys who said no. And
it's not president, it's commissioner.
I was the only one left.
He left the room at a key time in the meeting.
There are. Anyhow, EMASS softball is a senior softball league for players over the age of 50. And it's been in existence for 24 years. This will be our 24th year. It started out in 1995 with 4 teams and 80 players. It's my understanding that they had a few extra players who couldn't play every week, so they were pool players who filled in every now and then. We now have, last year we had 31 teams and over 400 members of EMASS softball, and they play. We have games every day of the week, but Sunday we have games in several fields in Framingham, some fields in Wayland, and in Ashland, and there are 5 different divisions that play. So there's a division, whatever your skill level is, there's a division for you in EMASS softball. There are 2 divisions that play on Saturday and 3 divisions during the week, on weekdays. They play weekday mornings, so those divisions tend to be the retired guys, or they're guys who maybe still work running their own business. At least once a week, you'll hear somebody on a cell phone between innings or at first base. I once heard a guy on first base pull out of his cell phone and say, "Can't you tell them I'm in a meeting?" And so that goes on. But anyhow, it's all skill levels. The age range is from age 50 to into their 80s. There are several.
I think we have a couple of pictures of some of the fields in Wayland that we play on, if we can bring those up.
But and
a couple of the championship teams even.
The average age of the 400 players is age 69.
Wow.
Which actually happens to be my age, so I'm now heading the downside of my softball.
This is if you're playing right field in Wayland.
And you're really tall. Yeah.
And you're really tall.
Yeah.
And one of the Saturday divisions, which is our strongest division, has an average age of 60. And another that's a team that I was on a couple of years ago. I think
Me too.
Dave's team, where
the guy with the strange shirt.
Dave's in the back. I'm crouched down front. The Metro division, which is our oldest division, is an over 65 division. You have to be 65 or older to play in that division, and
that's a championship team from that league.
That's champions from Metro, and the average age of that division is age 74. There are other divisions that are mid-level divisions in between where the average age is 67 or 69. An important thing to keep in mind is that it's a long season. We start in April as soon as the snow is off the fields, and we play right through October. There are playoffs in October. Every team has a doubleheader each week. So over the course of the season, you might have 40 softball games that you'll play in. And the cost of playing isn't too bad. Do you want me to get into the cost
just
right now?
briefly. I mean, just the total. Each league's less than $200.
It's less than $200. The Saturday division, the cost is $165, and for the weekday divisions, it's $135. So if you factor it out for those 40 games, you're only paying $3-4 per game, maybe $1 per.
A lot cheaper than golf.
$1 per at bat, something like that. So you get a very good bang.
Make sure I get my money's worth
in this league.
Rob, you're in the American division, which plays on weekdays, on the weekends in Framingham.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about that division and kind of how you got started.
Well, actually, I got started because I had played for about 27 years in the modified fast pitch leagues in the Boston City leagues, and that played during the week. And I was looking for a men's league that played on Saturday. And luckily for me, it was the year that I turned 50, and it was also the year that EMASS dropped their minimum age to 50.
We have a picture of one of the sluggers in that league.
So I was able to get into that division. We have the age limit of 50, and so what we draw, that's Dave Brisson, making one of our better hitters, making a great swing at a ball. But we have a lot of guys who play tournament ball, are nationally competitive. Some of our guys have played on teams that have gone all the way to the finals in their age divisions nationally. So it's a pretty competitive thing, but it's also a tremendous amount of camaraderie. I mean, one of the things that's amazing about EMASS games is the fielders are just as likely to give somebody a high five as he's rounding the bases as his teammates are. So it's a great atmosphere and great competitive softball.
And Dennis, you're in a couple of leagues.
Yeah, I joined about 5 or 6 years ago. A friend of mine, Jerry Yaffe, played in the league for years, and I went to watch him play one day.
I think we have a couple of videos eventually coming up here, but just go on.
I was sitting in the stands watching this game, and the Metro was over 65. And I said, I can do that. And it had been a while since I played. Of course, like everybody, I played Little League, Babe Ruth League, a lot of fast pitch leagues over the years, but I hadn't played in about 10 years. So about mid-season, they found a team for me to go into and onto. And I was a little rusty, I have to admit, but I went on to enjoy it. Bob mentioned the camaraderie of the guys. I think that's a major reason for joining the league. The guys have been great. And like he said, people are apt to congratulate a member of the opposite team very easily. These guys are former doctors, lawyers, everything you can imagine. And they love to play ball. They're very competitive. The Metro, I coach, and you're my assistant coach. The guys are 65 and up, and we have some players that are 84. And a little story I'll tell you is last year, it was 95 degrees one day. And I went up to my 84-year-old player, and I said, Bob, why don't you sit out for a while? It's kind of hot. I thought I was doing him a favor. And he looked at me sternly and he said, do you know what I'm doing after this game? I'm playing tennis. I said, okay, Bob, you might have to play for me.
Yeah, well, one of our guys was even in a feature in the Wall Street Journal last year, one of our 80-year-olds.
Yeah, I think the amazing thing about the league is it doesn't really matter what age you are on the calendar. When we step out there, and this was something that one of the guys told me when I first joined the league, is that when you step out on that field, you're 12.
My wife says that.
Yeah, and that's exactly, I think, how we all feel, and at times that's how we all act. But it's something that I think no matter what day of the week you play, that's the day of the week you're going to look forward to when you're part of EMASS.
Well, speaking of retirees, I know we had a very famous retiree show up this past year, and I know Dennis, you were there, and Rob, you were part of that. I think we got a few pictures of that guest. If anybody out there in TV land wants to take a guess who this might have been, I think the pictures will come up and may be very self-explanatory. I think we might recognize that face. There's a couple of pictures. Oh, there's Dennis. Dennis had a poppy moment.
He's a big man.
He's a big man.
It's a famous ball player and then big poppy.
And there he is taking my place at first base and doing it right and giving some infield. And there he is with Jesse Lippin and a bunch of guys in this picture. Rob, you're in the back on this, I see, and Dennis. And
yeah, that's a great.
And so that was a great moment. How did that happen, Rob?
This happened because a film company, a production company, was doing a series of commercials with David Ortiz looking for something to do in retirement. And they contacted me to ask if they could use EMASS senior softball for one of these commercials. And so I said sure, but they wanted it to be a secret, so nobody else knew that David Ortiz was going to be there. And but of course there was a big film crew there. We used the ruse that they were doing a documentary on EMASS, so everybody was on their best behavior. But then along about the third or fourth inning, the manager of one of the teams signaled for a pinch hitter, which confused people because we don't have pinch hitters in senior softball. But then from a car down the road, he was hiding in the car, out stepped David Ortiz, who strode up to the plate to take a turn at bat in senior softball. And the first pitch that he swung at, he hit into the diamond on the opposite side of the field. It was an unused diamond at that time.
Never been done before. I understand the pitcher threw him a couple outside the strike zone to test him.
Yes, at first the pitcher who was one of our well-known pitchers, and he's another guy who's, I believe, in his early 80s, didn't give him anything good to hit in the first couple of pitches. He had a couple of wasted pitches before he gave one that Big Poppy could really crush.
Well, we've had a lot of special moments in EMASS. I know a bunch of guys go down to the Cape for a tournament in September. We had a very unique experience that started about 7 years ago. I remember with some players from Cuba, and I know this is a hat from one of the years 2013, but. Why don't you? I think haven't some of you participated in this?
I haven't, but
I have. I went the very first year it was offered.
We've got some pictures that we can run of this too that are pretty amazing.
It was in 2009. One of our members in EMASS, Mike Eisenberg, has
there's the guys down in Cuba with
a cigar.
The guy in the middle is known as El Gringo, lighting his cigar. But anyhow, our member Mike Eisenberg has a business of leading tours to Cuba, and he did that. He's done that for EMASS now.
There's some of the guys from Cuba, and these guys were all great players in their prime, and I know they were friends with Louis Tion, a couple of them, and. This is when they came up to Boston one year, and they went to Fenway Park, and they're right in front of the House of Blues there. And they were honored on the field. And this is some of our guys as visitadores in Cuba. I think that may have been one of the early years. And this was an exciting moment one year when we were there and they played the national anthem, and they played Stars and Stripes Forever, and we all stood on the field, and then the Cuban national anthem. That's always a heart-rending moment, I think. And then there's one more. This is the year I went. We had a chance to go to the embassy, and we had a meeting with the man who had a different title than chief ambassador. I forget what it was, but that all has been it's just one of the kind of exciting things. There's just so many opportunities that are beyond. I know some of the guys go to Florida, some play in other tournaments around the country.
Yeah, there's a Cape Cod Classic tournament every fall in September, where I think there might be as many as 100 EMASS players who participated. The tournaments they're usually divided by age group, so there's one division for 60-year-olds, one for 65, 70, 75s, and we usually send a team for at least one team in each one of those age divisions.
Well, you know, there's all these kinds of exciting things with Poppy showing up and going to Cuba. You know, the real excitement to me, and I think what I've heard from, are just these special moments that we all have in playing. And why don't you guys both, especially Rob and Dennis, share a couple of your stories. Close your eyes and think about the stories that you come home and tell your grandchildren or your family about.
Well, for me, a lot of it has to do with the success of some of the guys who are going through certain things that we tend to go through as we get older. So sometimes we have guys who are going through sickness or recovering from illness, And there have been several situations where we have guys who've battled through to the end of the season, and just having those guys as your teammates and being able to support them and getting through a season. I think for me, those are are the moments that are even more special than getting the big hit or making the big catch.
Right, but you must have done that once. If you're in the American League, you must have had a walk-off either, or you dropped the ball. What position do you play usually?
No, I'm an infielder. No, but
okay.
but you're absolutely right. For me, it's some of the hits that go beyond some of our better-known players. So
okay.
I had one. I don't want to name any names, but one of our better hitters was in center field, and I hit one over his head last year, and getting a congratulations from him coming out after doing that was pretty special to me. So.
What about you, Dennis? Talk a little bit about a couple of things. I know we shared a few together that I could think of, but
yeah, I think it's a very special thing when you make a good catch, and the opposition tells you you made a good catch. I also think we change players in every team every year.
Yeah, I want to mention
so I've
too,
gotten
yes.
to meet in 5 years or so hundreds of great guys. From all different walks of life, and you really get to bond with them, over time. And even though you meet each other the next year on a different team, it's still a handshake and a smile. And how was your winter? That's one of the best parts about the EMASS softball.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I know the field up in Wayland. There's a funeral home down the street from us. Talk about what happens when When I first saw this, I was quite amazed and very proud to be in the EMASS softball. I was out in the outfield, and the umpire came out and called time, and a funeral procession was coming up the street. And everyone on both fields stopped their games and turned toward the procession, took their caps off, and put over their hearts, and stood until the procession went around the block and out of sight. That was very impressive. I think, Rob, we've received a lot of letters from families addressing that and thanking us for doing that. And that's a proud moment to see these guys at our age respecting that. It's something from the 1950s that you don't see very often. Right.
Yeah.
I got a proud ego moment out of Rob. I've got to have one out of you, because I know you've had some, which often resulted in injury. But.
Right. You've seen me get injured making diving catches. I make diving catches because my arms are so short. I can't run to the ball. I have to jump at them. But my favorite catch was an Atlantic game. It was a playoff game, and I was playing left center field, and it was a long fly ball that one of our best players, Steve Elkington, couldn't get to, and I got to and made the game-winning catch. And that's like being 12 years old again.
Right, exactly.
Babe Ruth League, etc.
We're all 12, and I know people do get hurt, but I know, Rob, the league goes to some efforts to encourage player safety.
Yes, to start with, our pitchers are the most vulnerable people because they're the closest to the hitters and the ball,
these hard bats.
The bats, and the ball can be moving quickly. Yeah. Also, pitchers are apt to be somewhat older than our other players. So we have a requirement that the pitchers wear a face mask. And we also provide a pitching screen in front of the pitcher. That's required in the Metro over 65 division. The other divisions, it's optional. If one pitcher wants the screen, both pitchers are required to use it. If they don't want it, then there's no pitching screen. But in addition to that, we have 2 first bases and 2 home plates, so that there are no collisions at first base or home plate, and the runner is required to go to one of those bases while the catcher or the first baseman is at the other base.
Well, after all this excitement and all that, we're still looking for more players. I mean, I find that hard to believe. 300 and some players. But what? How many teams did you say?
There are 30. Last year there were 31 teams, and that's 465 players. We didn't have 465 members because many players play in two different teams in two different divisions. But every year we need to recruit more because of our age cohort. There are some people who are retiring from senior softball every year. They either no longer can do it or the game has passed them by. So we're always looking for new recruits, and we have just started our registration for the 2018 season, and hoping that we can find some over 50 people to sign up. And in particular, I wanted to direct this to Framingham. Framingham actually is the town where we have the most representation in EMASS. I don't know the exact number of Framingham residents, but there are a number of Framingham residents. But recently, I think it was in the fall, the Boston Globe ran a series on racism in the Boston area and suggested that while racism may not always be a deliberate, intentional thing, that we tend to group with similar ethnic types as we are. And while we in EMASS like to think of ourselves as warm and welcoming and open, as you look around the field, for instance, in the David Ortiz appearance, David Ortiz was the only person of color on the field at that time, and we have only a handful of African American and Latino players. So we're making a concerted effort to recruit some players from those ethnic groups to EMASS senior softball. And Framingham happens to be a town, now a city, that does have a significant population of underrepresented people in EMASS senior softball.
So we're looking for suggestions of places to do advertising and more outreach and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right.
Well, we do have several women in the league too. We didn't touch on that.
We do. We have women. We're always welcoming to women. I don't want to paint women with a broad brush, but my suspicion is that women of our age already have full lives, and they're not looking for something to do. While as we in retirement need to fill our time, we also, I think it's been shown that we have a harder time making friends than women do. So I've always suspicious that that's why men are more attracted to senior softball than are women.
But the women that we do have are good players.
They're very good players.
They're fast and and they've been known to take hits away from some of us on this panel.
Yes, they have.
We all grew up. I think you probably all grew up as baseball fans. Is that a fair statement to make?
Yes.
Yeah.
And were you all in Massachusetts?
Oh, I grew up in Connecticut.
Okay, so you had the same problem I had in Connecticut.
Yes.
And your father flipped you to which one?
Well, I was actually a Mets fan growing
that's good.
up
Okay.
because that was the first game I ever went to, and I went to a Mets game in '68, and then they won it in '69. Yeah. But then, of course, I had to make my big decision, in '86, and so then I became a Red Sox fan and had made my decision.
Well, good for you.
Made the switch.
That's how you pass the qualification test to be on this show.
Right, exactly.
And you guys, you're Bostonians, born and bred, or
born in Lawrence, Mass, and I was. We weren't big Red Sox fans in the. I was born in '46. They lost to the Cardinals in 7 games that year, and then they didn't play in a World Series till '67.
So there was a.
I was a grown-up, married, with children, and I rooted for the Celtics a lot during those years because they won championship after championship.
Yeah.
But I got to see Ted Williams play a lot at Fenway Park. That was a thrill at the time.
And you, Rob?
Yeah, similar to Dennis. I grew up in the Brockton area, just south of Boston. I was a huge Celtics fan back then, a Red Sox fan.
But the Celtics were the winners.
Yes, they were the winners. In fact, back then, the Celtics, emotionally for me, are similar to what the Patriots are now. But I always enjoyed the Red Sox, rooted for them, and died with them in every World Series until 2004.
And even still today, what do you think about I don't want to date this, but we have the 2018 Red Sox season coming up. What do you think about the current outlook?
Pitching.
Same look for everybody,
pitching.
Well, who knows, right?
Exactly.
If their pitching comes through, if their pitching came through last year, they probably would have won the whole thing. They had a great staff.
It's just so different from when we were kids and you rooted for a team and it was the same team pretty much year after year. And now with free agency and everything, there's so much movement. It seems like it's a crapshoot every year.
Yeah, it's tougher to be a fan, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's one of the reasons I'm doing this show, is to get people to go and watch the Framingham Legion team play and watch the high school team play. And I've just been more inspired since I've been doing this to go watch Framingham State play.
Yeah.
And their football games especially are great. And,
I think all local sports like that and minor league sports too, I think is fantastic.
Pawtucket's a great take.
Yeah, absolutely.
Portland. Yeah, I did
fantastic.
that for the first time.
Great family. I used to take my kids there, and it was so wonderful because you could let your kid go for a hot dog and you could watch them through the whole stadium. You could just watch them go get the hot dog and come back to your seat and not have to worry about it. So, yeah, fantastic.
Did you all play in Little League?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Sure.
Yeah.
You betcha.
And college, anybody?
No. Just intramurals, and that's where I started playing softball. Was intramurals
until you got
college.
the big contract from EMASS.
That was it. Absolutely, they doubled my salary from what I had before. So.
Well, softball and EMASS are just a great thing. We were talking about the Red Sox there before. I came across a poem this week by Dick Flavin, and the Red Sox never miss a chance to market something. And Dick Flavin, who was the classic broadcaster on Channel 4 going way back, and now does some PA work at the Red Sox. He's a poet. In fact, he's the Red Sox Poet Laureate. And he sent this piece around that I got this week, and I'm just inspired to read some of it because I think this resonates with all of us. It goes something like this. Singles and doubles and triples and homers, popcorn and hot dogs and ballpark aromas. Pitchers with slow pitch, I changed that for this, that make you swing late. These are a few of the things that make softball great. Infielders, outfielders, catchers and hitters, late innings that give you the jitters, batters with stances that kids emulate. These are a few of the things that make softball great. But to which I had to add a verse for EMASS. Senior softball is fun in the sun, says this rookie poet, for all who swing late or hit a home run. You might even play if you're over age 80 or if your body is really overweighty. A little stretch there. But so check out EMASS and sign up today. And come this summer, you'll be ready to play.
Well done.
And so kudos to the poet here. But Rob, one more time on how does one go about signing up? I know when I joined, I had to get the phone number of the commissioner and call him up. Is it easier than that?
It is. We have a website, and the website is www.e-mass.org. And
so it's kind of like what we're seeing on the big screen, yes, except there's a hyphen between emass.org.
If you search EMASS Senior Softball, it will be the first thing that pops up.
And register online.
And you can register right up through the start of the season probably, but you're trying to do it earlier, right?
We try to encourage people to do it by the middle of March so that we can start forming teams, but if someone registers after that, they'll be on a team.
So they sign up there and they can pay there with a credit card,
with a credit card,
and then they'll be on the mailing list, and they'll find out, and sooner or later they'll find out what team they're on after the.
Yeah, they'll be
assigned. The great science is how these teams get put together, and I don't want to expose that here.
A lot of science,
but it's balanced so well.
That's what we try to do, but it's hard for new players because, of course, we don't know their skill level. We ask them their skill level, but they don't really know compared to what senior softball is like. So it's really the first couple weeks or more into the season before we can really get a handle on where the new players should be placed on a team.
Well, it's an exciting thing to be a part of, and I know from my experiences I can testify firsthand, but anybody out there who is over age 50 and has any love of baseball or sports really should look into this, because this is just sincere fun. The camaraderie and all that, I know, is just great, and you guys have done a great job representing this today. I think we've told the story quite well. So thanks for coming on, guys. And,
thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dave.
Thanks for having us.
And to all of my friends and fans out there in sports TV land, get involved in sports. It's a lot of fun. Watch it, play it. It's great. Stay tuned for another show.